Awakening awareness starts like a gift, a sort of light feeling that's matched with unparalleled clarity. Everything in the world starts to finally make sense. The web that made up a lot of the veil that covered the world around us starts to unravel. But then at a certain point, it turns. The deeper that you go down the rabbit hole, the more the old world starts to feel a bit hollow and fake, maybe even disturbing sometimes. What used to excite you becomes empty. Connections that once felt alive start to drain you. And at certain times, it can feel like a curse instead of a blessing. But this darkness that you might feel like it's sort of starting to surround you, it's not the wrong road. It's actually a sign that you're on the right path. It's just the matrix trying to pull you back in at certain times. It's the old self dissolving to make room for something real. This dark passage of awakening is very heavy. It's confusing, but it's where true transformation is forged. At times it seems dark and lonely, but the light that's on the other side is deeper than anything you've ever known.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you. You won't get to choose how long you're here. You won't know how many sunrises you have left. You don't get to rewind, pause, or skip the hard chapters. All you get is now. This moment, this breath, and most people waste it. Waiting for the perfect timing, for clarity, for permission.
For those of us living a life where our purpose doesn't need permission, capturing fulfillment and meaning in every moment we're alive. This is the Live This Life podcast. I'm your host, Heath Cummings. I'm here to inspire you to ask yourself the question every day. Are you living? Are you killing time?
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Heath Cummings, aware and awake. A product of, I'd say, a generation that came up through sort of a revolution of waking up to what the real world is actually all about. My generation was bombarded by countless examples of lifting the veil, so to speak, and looking sort of behind the curtain that shrouds most of the world's eyes and funnels them into sort of a false sense of reality in a way. You know, movies like The Matrix and books like The Celestine Prophecy, revelations about things that were sold to us as gospel, just the way that it was. And we watch those things fall apart one by one. It all starts to unravel when you open your eyes and you accept things beyond just crazy conspiracy theory. You know, the religious dogmas that we're supposed to abide by and not ask any questions about, they start to fall apart right in front of you when you start to apply knowledge and logic. Politics shows itself for exactly the division machine that it is. The spoon-fed narratives about the way that it is and not questioning anything is no longer palatable to you. It's no longer a spoon that we are choosing to feed ourselves with. And we realize at a certain point that there is no spoon, so to speak. This awakening is so many different things. It's our spirituality, it's our existence, it's our connection to the oneness of all things, the manipulation that we face at every single turn of our lives at a certain point. Those things are, in my opinion, designed to distract us from that oneness. And we, like all those in our sort of small but growing group of people that would, I guess, say that we're awakened. I don't really like to use the word enlightened, but I mean, that is a term that people have used as well. But this group, it was a small chosen few in many decades past, and it's continuing to grow, especially in recent times with some recent revelations about the world around us and what might actually be going on with a lot of these things that we thought were a certain way. We are continuously captivated by what the sort of glasses of truth, I guess is how I've heard them referred to at certain times, but what those glasses can actually show us about the awakening process in itself. We in this group tend to see the wonder of what this existence has to really offer us. Because we as humans, we see a very small funneled wedge of the physical world around us. I mean, like literally, physically, we only see a certain amount of the visible spectrum of light that is available to us. And there's certain animals and beings on this planet that can see spectrums far wider and greater than us. Things that can see into the infrared and see into the ultraviolet. And those light bands are definitely out there. We just need special equipment to see those things. And there's other aspects of life that are there around us in existence that we just simply aren't aware of. And I'd say the awakening process, becoming consciously aware of the mysteries of life and the what ifs of what could actually be out there, tend to give you a little bit more of an extrasensory perception of what could actually be going on out there. It broadens that small, narrow band of the visible light that you're able to see, and it turns it into something much, much bigger so you can see a broader picture of the world around you. And those people in that group, we honestly can see what others can't. Not because we have some sort of extrasensory perception in all reality. It's more of a broadened spectrum of awareness. And a lot of those people are deified as conspiracy theorists and tinfoil hat wearers and whatever else. But in recent years, they're becoming much more vindicated. And recently, with some of the stuff that's come to light, a lot more people are starting to join that group. And at this point, we're the ones who the newbies are really looking for and saying, can you believe this? Can you believe that? Can you believe what was in those Epstein files? And they're doing this and they're doing that. And, in the conversations I've had lately, it's like, yeah, I actually can believe it. It's pretty crazy. And by the way, welcome to the club. Buckle up, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye. The Great Awakening, I think, is upon us right now. It's been a slow boil, but I think the recent events of what has come up in the world and a lot of these files getting released, there's a lot of crazy stuff in there, a lot of very dark, nasty stuff, but there's a lot of little breadcrumbs of things that are being revealed when it comes to just from health to 9/11 to just so many different things that people have been saying for years that this is not the way that it is. And now there's these people, the huge elites of the world who tend to run everything and, I guess, control the information and what everybody can actually believe what reality is. It's all starting to come to light. These are the things that they talk about behind the scenes and what is basically starting to be proven to be true. And it's opening up a lot of people's eyes. The negative stuff, but also there's a lot of beneficial things that were deified as alternative medicines and conspiracy theories and everything else. And people are really waking up to it. And it's great. I mean, there's a certain aspect of the world where, some people are a little bit bitter because they're like, I've been telling you these things for years. Well, some people just had a certain different way of coming to their awareness than others. Some took a little bit longer. Everybody's got their own path. Everybody's on that road. But as soon as somebody gets to that road, if you're somebody who has been fortunate enough that you've become aware of certain things, in a longer period of time than people in recent times, use that as a platform to welcome those people and slowly try to get them up to speed, because there's a lot of stuff that they're going to start diving down in rabbit holes. The crazy theories that have proven to be true, and they're going to need some help, and they're turning to some of the people who are aware much sooner for some of the guidance. A lot of the theories that were proven true about COVID, the vaccines, Epstein, UFOs, JFK, I mean, countless things that are starting to actually come to light, not just through the Epstein files, just through revelations that have come about in recent months. It's blowing a lot of people's minds. And for other people, it's vindication for what they've been saying for so long and being called crazy. When you have all your basic fundamentals about reality completely broken down, it's a process to assimilate that. It takes a lot, whether it's the fact that intelligent life exists outside of this planet in some other way, whether it's extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, there's all those debates going on. There's definitely things that are being found and acknowledged that are beyond human construction. They are non-human creations. Those types of things can shake you to your core. And it does not even just about UFOs. I mean, people were laughed and scoffed after the last 70 years about that stuff. But, as soon as the trusted sources start to talk about it, it opens up people's eyes. And it's just a shame that had to happen. But ultimately, be grateful that it did happen. Whether it's about the UFO thing, whether it's about things about health, who you trusted for advice, the media, people still tend to only believe the media. So now that some of these things are coming out in the media, now they're believing them. But I think that's also making them distrust the media longer because the media lied. And now they're shifting their tune and saying, well, just believe us on this one as well. And people are like, I think the only thing I'm believing at this point is that I can't believe what you say, and I'm going to move on somewhere else and get my advice from a much more varied source. It takes time to adjust to that mode of thinking. And the people who are on the side previously of the awakened I'm glad, I'm actually proud of some of them, that they're less about pointing fingers or holding a grudge about being deified and not being believed for all those years. And they're more about welcoming people to the club and helping them navigate the crazy space that we all find ourselves in. We're all in this together. So it doesn't make any sense to try and divide because someone didn't believe you at a certain point or deified you. It's like at a certain point, just be glad that they're awakened, because the more people who are in the club, the more the tide turns. And it's that rate of attrition that I've talked about on the show before, where it's like just several people who are bringing that light can help just shift so many more people. The resonance, the rate of attrition on it just keeps on growing and growing. It doubles itself many times over. Many of us were there at a certain point. Many of us have been to the place where we just were trusting everything and everyone for the wrong reasons, the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And then there were a certain demographic of us who became awakened at whatever point we were fortunate enough to. And we were there to fend for ourselves at certain points through it all. And those passages, if you can remember that process, can be very dark and lonely. There's a lot of stuff in there that I wish I had more people behind me saying, hey, welcome to the club. Come on in. Let's have some conversations. You want to dive into this slow. You want to dip your toes in. You want to go in this direction and that direction. Here's some guidance on how to navigate this new world you find yourselves in. And that's what we're actually talking about today. The part of awakening that no one warns you about, the moment when the light of awakening starts to feel extremely heavy and maybe even a burden. You begin to see through the surface level of every single thing in the world, the illusions, the scripts, the collective dream that most people live in on a daily basis, the comfortable lie that a majority of the world is unfortunately still in. And at first, when you have separated yourself from the herd, it is somewhat exhilarating. You feel like you've almost leveled up above the rest of the world that is still asleep, and you feel like you've got sort of this new superpower that a majority of the world doesn't have. And it's something that, they do have, they just don't even realize it. Things at certain points, and you have different perspectives that give you sort of an ultimate level of perception about the world at large. It feels like nobody's pulling the wool over your eyes ever again. And they say many things about that process. It's like wearing the glasses of awakening or awareness. There are 3 rules to wearing those glasses. Number 1, you can never take them off. So once you put them on, if you're ready to take this ride, you're on it for life. Number 2 is you can't ever force anyone to wear those. They have to put them on themselves. And if you try to force people, they'll become more resistant. And number 3, you will never see things the way that your tribe has seen them and the way that they say it's supposed to be. You will never believe a single thing that most of them are standing on a hill ready to die on, and you just won't believe it. And you have to be ready for those things. But then slowly along that process, the things that used to motivate you suddenly feel like they're not there. The things that gave your life meaning, they lose their glimmer and power because you realize that they were really not that important in the first place. The drive for the usual markers of success and status and possessions and titles and all the normal distractions that we find in life of partying and sports and movies and Hollywood, every one of those things starts dissolving for the farce that they really are. The whole bread and circus thing, if you know about ancient Greece, it's just the common saying is you give them bread and circus and they won't revolt. And it's true. There are so many people who are just so deeply entrained in the entertainment aspects of the world around them that they don't free up any available brain space to process these things so that they can actually discern for themselves. They're just on from one Super Bowl to the NBA playoffs to whatever news stories going on. They fill their minds with the things that are just being pumped out there in front of them, and no fault for them. It's doing the job that those things are designed to do. And I'm not going to poo-poo on all those things. I watched Super Bowl. I'm getting back into sports now that the Patriots aren't awful, and it's really the only sport that I was into. But, it's a bit of entertainment, but I don't let my life revolve around it. It's great to get there with friends, get a little hyped up when you're watching a game, and get together with people and have a good time. And you don't lose touch with those things because life can get extremely stale and boring. I think that's what also adds to what we're going to talk about today, is that people go a little bit too far when they get down that path of awakening because they feel like everything that they used to pay attention to was simply just a waste of time. There's some falsities in that as well. Like, you really should enjoy the things in life in moderation, and that's the key word, I think, moderation. Enjoy some of the things in life that do bring your life some joy. Do the things that feel good. Do the things that you enjoy, that make you smile, that are a good time. You just don't let certain vices rope you in. Even this awakening process, even diving into some of the information and the stuff that's out there, you got to stay away from all of it at a certain point because it can bring you down some really dark rabbit holes, and you find yourself completely obsessed with the process of just researching these things. From the inside of it all, it can look exactly like depression. It can sort of bring a flatness and a disconnection to your life in a sense that nothing really matters anymore, and you have to be very careful of that. I've been there. I've been in rooms full of people and felt like I was watching scripted performances from literally everyone that was there. Everyone was playing their part. They were chasing some of the old prizes that were out there, making sure that someone next to them knows how important they really were, trying to fulfill some sort of ego gratification that the ego needs, and that's what it's there for. But then when you're there in that process and you're in that place of awareness, and you're standing on the periphery and you're the one who's begun to see through the acts and all the people who are there in the play, you're watching the play go on right in front of you, the actors that are acting the part, and you see it all for what it is, and it's quite empty, and it's a feeling that you can't really shake. It's something that starts to break down reality completely for you. Like, what is the real reality about things? If it's not something that most people in the room would think is crazy or inspiring, we're just not about it anymore. The conversations you really want to have, most people aren't ready to have. And it's a crazy place to find yourself in. This is the passage that we're exploring today. This passage, this dark stretch of awakening that gets misread, it gets feared, it gets even pathologized, or it gets treated as something unusual or unhealthy. That's what pathologized means. It's not a breakdown of life. It's actually a breakthrough wearing a disguise. And we're going to unpack why the old joys fade away, why relationships drift and shift away, and why the world can sort of feel like it's running on yesterday's program while you're wide awake. And the most important thing is how to walk through it all without losing yourself and emerging stronger on the other side of it all. This episode is for anyone who's felt that quiet void and wondered what comes next. Where does this lead? So stay with me on this one. This is one that's going to leave you hopeful that you're not crazy and you're definitely on the right path. So this is going to be our jumping off point for this episode. But before we dive too deep, I want to mention for everyone out there listening, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. For those on local TV, just keep watching whenever it pops up for you. If you want to check out the website as well, I know a lot of people who tune in locally. Some of you don't have social media and it's not all about it. You can head to livethislife.org, and it's the next best thing to having social media because a lot of the stuff I put on social media goes on the website as well. So you can dive on some of that stuff and have some content without the vices of social media. So check that out if you're interested. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the notification bell so you can get new alerts on new episodes. And for those of you who want to dive a little bit deeper into everything the show has to offer, head to livethislife.org and join the mailing list. The first people who get the episodes are the ones that are on the mailing list. And you'll also get an exclusive video from me that only those on the mailing list will be able to see. So if you're interested in that, go to the website and sign up. If you do sign up, please remember to make sure that you go to your inbox when it comes through and mark it as safe. Otherwise, it might get lost in your promotions or spam folder. I've heard that that's been happening to people. But whatever platform you're listening on, subscribe to the show so you see all new content. Those on the mailing list, you're going to get that little bit extra, so be sure to sign up. And please leave those ratings and reviews for the show wherever you're listening. It helps us reach new listeners and gets the word out there in this huge sea of podcasts. It's nearly 5 million podcasts out there. It just keeps on growing. And we have hovered in the top 50,000 in the world, slipped in recent times because of the gap in some of the recording that happened in the past year. But you guys have been amazing on that front, and it's continuing to move back up. So I have hope that someday we might reach some of the highs that we were at a certain time. So thank you so much for that. Apple Podcasts and Spotify are probably the two best places that you can leave the ratings and push it out there to anybody in the whole algo waves of the interwebs and everything. So please check that out, leave those reviews, and we will read them on the show if we see them somewhere. A couple of reviews that I am going to read today come by way of, actually, they come from YouTube. The first one I'm going to read, it was very long, so I'm going to just paraphrase part of it, but this one's from Leoness Butterfly 8813. And this was about episode 131 of the podcast where we read chapters 7 and 8 of Oneness. And they wrote, I don't know why this came to me today. Something inside of me said, it's a practice not to play the wolf, and it's a practice not to play the sheep. Go and be beyond both, even when playing in both in different times, may seem beneficial. And treat others as if they were beyond both, so they can see a reaction beyond it, so they can see their potential beyond the lower level. Treat others and yourself as if we are higher because we are. Absolutely. That was a great comment on an older episode. I can't exactly remember what chapters 7 and 8 were about, but I do believe, that entire book is all about digging deeper about our existence and seeing that we are nothing but God in costume. That's how I like to refer to it. It's just a character being played in different suits. So I appreciate that comment. Another one was on episode 147, Closing the Cycle. It was from Brazilian Yogini, and they just simply said, thanks for this. And I replied with, you're very welcome and thanks for listening. Another one was actually an older comment that I found on YouTube that I hadn't seen in a while. This one's from Natural Origin 3726. And they asked, are you doing any additional chapters? I think it was referring to Oneness. Are you doing any additional chapters? This is exactly where I am, and I am so grateful for this. And yes, we are doing every chapter of the book. We're going to be reading every single chapter. I have an episode coming out right after this one that is a guest episode that got lost in the transit of the gap when I was away from the show. So a very dear friend who has actually been fighting cancer and is winning, which I'm very happy for. I will be airing her episode. And then after that, we'll be doing another episode of Oneness and be doing them much more frequently than we had been. So I appreciate that. And the actual comment goes a little bit further on from Natural Origin 3726. They said, just watched, and more than anything, I am truly grateful to know you did what you need to do to return for yourself. There's nothing on earth more important than reestablishing your authentic truth. All the best to you always. Looking forward to the next season. How fitting, episode 143. I love you. Self-love personified. Absolutely. Thank you for leaving those comments, guys, and I very much appreciate it. So get out there and leave those. I will read them on the show. You can also send some messages to livethislife.org if that's something that strikes your fancy. If you want to talk about an episode, if you have an episode idea, you can write to me at connect@livethislife.org and send in some show ideas, and I may be able to get your show idea turned into a full episode or answer some questions. If this show is also stirring something within you and is a regular part of your life, head to the merch shop at livethislife.org. Purpose doesn't need permission. Gear is live alongside of Get Lost to Find Yourself, Are You Living or Are You Killing Time, and a whole bunch of other things that we're posting on there, and a new line of clothing from Cape Cod and Nantucket. Wear the gear that has the message to keep you inspired in your life. Find new items like gym gear, beach wear, and everything in between. Get some great items to fuel the pod along the way. All right, guys, so now let's drop into the depths where the real shift goes down. When you first start to wake up, And I'm not just talking about spiritual awakening. This is an awakening process on so many different levels. It is a conscious awareness awakening that covers so much of existence. And I mean, ontologically speaking, it wakes up the four categories within ontology. And ontology is this basically just the study of the nature of being. And it has four subsets of categories. And I definitely can't remember all these. I remember them in practice. But the first subset of ontology is realism, which is objective reality. Realism assumes that an external or real world exists outside of human thought or perception. It believes truth is a, quote, real picture of the world, and it can be observed and understood and is not subjective to the person, that we are not some sort of privately created simulation. Then you have empiricism, which is the knowledge via the senses. Empiricism maintains that all of a person's knowledge originates from sensory experience, what we see, hear, or touch. It is the foundation for scientific investigation, relying on evidence to paint the picture. This one's always a tongue twister for me. Positivism. It is scientific measurement. It's an extreme rule-based form of empiricism that holds that only knowledge gained through observation, measurement, and scientific method is valid. It ignores the interpretations by the person. And then lastly, the one that has become proven to be most reliable based by scientific experiments is postmodernism, which is subjective/constructed reality. It challenges the notion of realism or that there is a single reality, a base reality. It argues that the truths are subjective to the person. It focuses on our own individual observations that create our understanding of the universe, which is what the dual slit experiment actually proved. You know, the experiment that was coined by Thomas Young, and it was solidified by Klaus Johnson and Niels Bohr, both of who pioneered the Copenhagen interpretation. That whole entire thing proved that observation of a physical world changes the outcome. And it was made famous by the particle wave duality that he discovered from it. So basically right there with ontology, you understand the basics of reality and how each one of these subsections can relate to another. Each one of them makes a great argument as to why each one of them is an absolute truth. And they built along the way on top of each other. For a while, there was no way to disprove one against another until there was. You know, different things came along and provided new information. The dual slit experiment did exactly that. It essentially disproved the other sciences. And they disagreed with it, but they also complemented each other along the way. And this is what science actually is. When people say believe the science, well, this is what science is. It's having a theory and letting different circumstances shake out to be which one's more plausible until better data comes along. You have to just not block yourself from learning something new or taking on new data because the science says one thing at a certain time. Our science has shifted throughout history. Human history has never stayed the same. Even different historical things about the way we thought history unfolded for human beings. Different civilizations, the things that we uncover, civilizations that had megalithic structures that were carved at the base of Mount Ararat. And these gigantic structures, were engineered and put into place and then purposely buried way before human beings supposedly even invented the wheel, thousands of years before the pyramids were even built. All that stuff completely shakes history to its core, and the science changes. So as the science changes along with other things, you have to just roll with those and not just block yourself from new data when it becomes available because you want to hang on to the old stuff because the old stuff is the way that your brain said it was for such a long time. You have to allow it to be disproven with new facts. And that's what the awakening process is all about. New things are going to come to light and you have to be willing to accept it. And it's very hard for some people to accept the new programming. In the beginning of this process, when the old ways of belief start to fade away, the light really does feel so incredible. That new information comes in and you're like, wow, I can see things. Why didn't I see this before? You see through the surface of so much stuff, the illusions of the old way of thought, the scripts that the collective people live in, and the dream that they all live in on a daily basis. Everything really starts to make sense and it comes at you very fast and heavy. You learn things and you're like, why didn't I see this before? And then eventually you can't get enough of it. You're reading books, you're listening to podcasts, you're talking to people about it, you're finding video after video, you're bookmarking things, you're saving them to your phone runs out of storage. I've been there. I've had to delete so many things lately that were on there that I don't need them anymore. And you're sharing that information with anyone that'll listen. But then the deeper you go, the more that light starts to reveal something else. The old world that you used to live in isn't what you had believed it was the entire time. And it really starts to lose its grip on you. The things that really used to excite you, that made you feel alive, that motivated you, that gave your life meaning, they all start to fade. And the drive for the usual markers of career climbs and social wins and possessions and all the other distractions that are out there, it all just starts to dissolve. And like I said, it can feel exactly like depression. And it's not, but you got to be careful sometimes that it is. The clinical depression is something to take very, very seriously. And this isn't medical advice. So if you think that's you got to go down the professional help road. But there are a few ways to spot the difference in certain ways. In depression, you're really trapped in dark thoughts with no space. In this awakening stretch, there's often a quiet observer behind the scenes, and it's sort of watching the flatness, and it's kind of curious about it all. It's a sort of spacious emptiness, I guess. It's a void that is just pregnant with so much thought, but it also at the same time feels empty. It is in fact full of processing, I think, at all times. And it's not the sort of tortured obsession that can be a byproduct of depression, but in this awakening process, you still are able to handle life's basics. You get up, you go through the motions, and you're good for the most part. Just without the old emotional charge. It just sort of leaves a flatness because things just have completely shifted in your point of view. But, there could be something really wrong health-wise. So don't substitute this philosophical existential dilemma theory for real mental illness. Always seek professional counseling, even if you think it's something small, even if it's this awakening process and you're having trouble navigating it. Go find a therapist that can actually help you. BetterHelp, they've been a huge sponsor of ours for a very long time. And you can find therapists that actually specialize in this kind of stuff if you can't find one locally. So I'll put that plug in there separate from our ads. But BetterHelp is great for that. And if you can't find a counselor that's good in that process, then you switch and you find a new one. But a real counselor will help you navigate this process or any other discord that you're having very, very well. So never sleep on the benefits of professional therapy, and a podcast isn't going to get you there. So don't mistake this for actual professional medical help. Bottom line is that you can find at a point where the energy to participate in life the way that it was just isn't there. The energy to keep up the chase, the care that made you want to continue to participate in things has just kind of vanished. The people around you, some start to feel like, like echoes of a life that you're leaving behind. Conversations, from my own standpoint, conversations that I would have start to feel really shallow. And the ones that I held back from many, many times, so I would just kind of sort of sit silent and let people talk. Because what I really wanted to talk about, the things that were just burning inside me, it was pointless to bring them up because I knew it wouldn't land. I knew the subject matter was above certain people's levels of understanding or awareness. But you get the point. You worry at a certain point, did I break something? Am I going backwards? What is this process? If it is an illness, then what is it? To be honest with you, it's disenchantment. It's a collective spell that you're breaking. It's a trance that pretty much everybody in this world that's not awakened is living in, and they're all chasing that trance at the same time. And it's breaking within you. That's exactly what's going on. The shared story that we all agree to take seriously, the one that says happiness comes from more, it comes from fitting in, it is coming from chasing whatever popular thing is out there. The next thing that they say is important. It's not important to you, and it's all starting to lose its hold. You've seen the career game for exactly what it is. It's a game with arbitrary rules. And at a certain point, it's not a game you want to play anymore, right? Possessions, the things that used to possess us. I got to have this specific car someday. I want to have this specific house someday. They're just not there for us anymore. Impressing people in that whole performance of it all, you can see right through the act. And whether it's their performances toward you or the potential of you performing for them, it doesn't matter anymore. And when the spell breaks, there's a void where the old motivations used to be in life. And the void is uncomfortable. It's disorienting. It does kind of suck at times. This place that you're in, this new space between two new worlds, or the old world and the new world, you've left the illusion behind, and the new way of thinking hasn't fully arrived yet. There's still a lot to discover. It's basically a process of ego death. It's the death of the false self, the one that was built on all the falsities of the world, on external validation and the performance and fitting in. A world based on rules that were based on lies. And now it's dissolving. And that death, even of an illusion, brings the whole grief process and emptiness and darkness. And the ego really fights to survive constantly. If you let up for a minute, it will start to creep back in. I don't know if it ever truly dies. They say ego death, but I don't know if it ever actually really dies. If you become distracted long enough and you let yourself immerse back into the game, it will start rearing its head, coming right back. For even those I would consider like the season ones, the OGs in this awakening game, I've seen it happen with some of them as well. They start to go down the path, they become highly awakened, and then they find some sort of success in all, or something that gratifies the ego. And then next thing you know, you got a guru who's standing up on stage just telling everybody, I'm the way that it is, and I know everything, and you need to follow me and no one else. That's not it either. But yeah, that ego, it just hangs on. And if you give it an inch, it will creep back in. It starts to whisper little things to you about, doubting the process and saying that you're sick and get back to normal. And normal was a trance. And that's something that you really need to realize too. It was easy for so long because it was that trance. The old saying, nothing that was easy was, nothing that was worth it was ever easy. So you got to be aware of that. So then what do? How do you navigate it? First, biggest thing, don't pathologize it. Don't classify it as unhealthy or unusual or whatever. And that's not to say that you're stuck in that whole depression thing either. So, for that, seek the help that you might need. When you're going through the symptoms of this awakening process, don't rush to fix yourself back to the old world, the old drive, the old vices, and the comfortable lie. You're not broken. It's a transition. It is not a track to get back onto. It is a different road altogether. And it's going to take some time to acclimate to that new road. So, the process. First, allow the void and sit with that emptiness without filling it fast. The information that comes at you, it's an overload, and it can become an addiction. It really can. Learning new things that, shift your whole reality. It's like, oh my God, well, what else didn't I know? And you want to dive into one thing after another. And the algorithms in social media, it starts just feeding you conspiracy theory, one after another. So a lot of those are going to come your way, and you get addicted to that kind of stuff. And you're listening to podcasts about it. I mean, I was there and I was talking about it on the show for quite a while. I'm not too far away from that process. So I'm not sitting here on my throne saying, no, don't be that way. I was that way not that long ago either. So trust me, I remember it wasn't that long ago. But a lot of the things that they talk about, some have their truths. Some of it is just some straight up wild shit that is just trash, and it's used to distract you. It is used to divide and dumb you down. So be discerning the entire time. Dive into the stuff that's going to lift you up for the most part. Because some of those crazy rabbit holes, they go deep, and there's a lot of dark stuff out there that's swirling around in the dark reaches of the world. You light up a dark corner and you might not like what you're going to see. A lot of the Epstein Files stuff is just that. And people are realizing how really awful some of the elites are. The most important thing I can say about that is don't ever forget. Remember what they do. If you learn about it, listen to what they're talking about. Listen to what's been said. The whole things that had to do with the code names they're using for stuff between different foods and all that. I don't even want to repeat any of it, but just look into it and think that there's possibilities of truth in it all, as dark as it is. There's no hiding it anymore. And then just remember what they did and who those people are, and keep that in mind next time somebody stands in front of you, tries to be a leader, because they may have those dark corners of their own, and they may be part of that club that you don't want to be a part of. You just have to say that anything anyone says is possible, and it's possible that it's just clickbait, So be careful when you're filling that void. I feel like it's a void that never actually gets filled. That void is where the purification happens, though. So when you're clearing out the old beliefs, try and keep that void relatively clear and don't fill it up with just unnecessary noise that's really not getting you to a good end place that you're trying to get to. Secondly, stay gentle with yourself. Basic care, eat, move, rest, keep grounded. When stuff unfolds, it's as simple as that. And I'd say third, find the anchors in life. Nature, silence, both of those things put together especially are very powerful. A journal helps to capture all the whispers that can come up in those silent moments and in that nice, serene place that you can find yourself in nature. And one of the most important aspects is, and this one often does get slept on so easily in this world of dopamine and distraction, is the journaling. It really is. So, it doesn't come at you with the doom scrolling dopamine addiction. So if it doesn't come with that, realize that it probably has a lot of value. And lastly, trust the process. It's a new way of being. Live from pure presence and not from thought. Don't fear things. Don't think about this stuff 24/7. Just be present in your life and put yourself in places where presence is going to be fulfilling. Do things that light yourself up. Scrolling's never going to get you there. Trust me. It may feel good in the moment. It never leaves you anywhere positive when it's all said and done. You can learn 1,000 things in a day. And ultimately, is that more rewarding than hiking somewhere and seeing an amazing view, or going to find a great waterfall, or do something invaluable with your kids and seeing the joy in their faces? It never will. Trust me. And this whole process can take years to unfold. And it can unfold in small trickles and then leaps and bounds, and then sometimes not at all. So just let the process be what it is and don't obsess about it. But once you get there, it really is a much more quieter joy of life. It's more spontaneous than it used to be. And that's because it's more in resonance with a truer version of who you really are. A more direct connection to life that feels so much more fulfilling than it was, because it is. It is a natural process that we used to live in before this matrix of illusion kept us prisoner. But I'm not going to lie, the isolation sometimes does hit hard. You outgrow circles, you have conversations that just sort of drift and bonds fade. It can affect long-lasting friendships and even marriages, especially if one person in the dynamic doesn't go along with any of the stuff that you're discovering and they think it's all crap and that you've simply lost your mind. Some people really just can't accept the new programming, and it's usually the very heaven and doctrine people or older generations. It's just been so long and so much that it's hard for them to shed that old skin. But I'll say, be patient in those situations too, because I have seen some people that eventually come around that I otherwise didn't think would. But yeah, the strongest of bonds can get broken, and it's not from drama either. Slow drift can often happen, and the paths diverge and interests can split, but they sometimes can come back together. And some people, when they split, they may try to pull you back to that old way of life and guilt trip you along the way. And, the collective hive mind thought process accuses you of changing so much. And it's almost a guilt trip for believing the way that you do and having your mind open, because it's different from how they think. Others, they distance themselves. It's very uncomfortable because the new light that you have is something they just can't handle. They don't have the glasses to shield themselves from that light, and they're going to be unwilling to hear a single sentence of what you've discovered. Their cognitive dissonance. Actually, that's another word that we use a lot, and people don't even use it sometimes. They don't realize they're using it wrong. It's basically just mental discomfort. We throw that term around a lot without knowing its true, real meaning. It's basically when people experience having two opposing beliefs that are like two magnets fighting against each other to win the space between the ears, and people cling on to the strongest magnet. And sometimes that is the long-held beliefs. They just can't handle what you're bringing to the table, so that magnet pushes the other one out. And it's a very painful process when that thought process gets inside the head and they're battling for superiority inside your brain. But yeah, this is the danger of outgrowing your tribe, and the fear of it is an ancient one. I think that a lot of people in a place of resisting the growth edge is just for the sake of trying to remain part of the tribe and fitting in and not becoming an outcast, because it can be very uncomfortable. But the truth seekers have always walked alone. in a sense. For the most part, we don't want to be accepted into that herd because they don't think independently. And there's a lot that's unfavorable about the herd mentality and the way that they sometimes act. There's a lot of historical figures and even modern influencers now. Heracles was before Socrates. He was known as the dark or obscure philosopher, was known to live alone. Friedrich Nietzsche, the late 1800s, a very famous solitary philosopher who championed the idea of the free spirit and praised solitude that many philosophers, including himself and historical ones like Heracles, would often find themselves in. And that goes all the way up to modern day. Alan Watts, he's been called a weirdo all along until modern day. Everybody and their brothers putting up clips of the stuff that he said. But back in 60s, 70s, 80s, that guy was just demonized as just a hippie whack job. Jordan Peterson, he faces regular cancel culture attempts all the time. Even myself, I'm not some sort of major influencer, but I've been attacked by those in my local community and at jobs and stuff like that because I don't conform with the mob mentality. And I call out the BS when I see it. I definitely don't fit into the tribes and circles. I never used to. I've always been sort of a black sheep. And when I was in law enforcement, there were certain things that I said and did that separated me from the herd. And honestly, I don't care to be included, and you find yourself in that same exact place. When you tend to be the person who's the most informed one in the room full of ignorant people who think they know it all, you don't really want to be there. What have you gained by attaching to that status? If you remain a part of those tribes that judge and ridicule you at the drop of a hat for no matter what you say or what you believe, what have you gained really? So it's just, you got to take stock of it all. So yeah, on the other side of all this, where is it? Where do you find yourself? Freedom, authenticity, a depth that makes the losses of life feel like sort of dead weight rather than something that you long to get back. To be perfectly honest with you, it's rewarding when it's all said and done. You gain stuff. You don't just lose things. You gain yourself, a true version of yourself, and not the mask that you have to build so that you can fit in. And on the other side, you find real love, real community. They find you deeper than before. And ultimately you're not alone in what feels like loneliness. This marker of a true seeker, I've heard is that you have to have the courage to keep on growing because it gets hard and uncomfortable. And when that awakening process costs you the familiar comfort that you've grown to know, that you're on the right path. You got to trust the darkness because in the darkest of places, the smallest amount of light will light up the right path for you and guide you to the source of that light. The creator, the source, is experiencing itself through the choices that you make in this existence. Your awakening is part of that process. And that's why it doesn't want the entire organism of humanity to have the same exact perspective and experience. You are one in 8 billion people on this rock. You are one of 8 billion souls that is here. And you have 1 in an 8 billion chance of having the perspective that you currently have and experience, and the one that will take you on to the end of your existence here. So remember that and treasure it for its uniqueness of what it is. And eventually you will get to the point where you realize, who cares what they think? You'll realize you'd rather know the silent truths instead of the popular lies. And when it comes to making that decision, when it's all said and done, you'll be happy you did it. When it seems like you should turn back, keep going, because that path leads right through the shadows past this dark passage of awakening. My perspectives on this, they don't come from some quick place of awakening. This has been the long game. It's not something that you just get to experience after a few months or a few years or a few books or documentaries. The whole rabbit hole is so deep. And it started with me, I'd say, back in like 1999 with the first Matrix movie. But, that was just a slow trickle of it all. I was questioning things like Oliver Stone's JFK from the early 90s, the entire 9/11 narrative when it happened. That story had so many holes in it. And some of those holes have been filled in by these Epstein files, which is crazy. But the whole UFO thing, for so many years, it just didn't seem right. And we all knew there was cover-ups and the whole Men in Black thing. Like, they were just showing up and just silencing people. And, one of the most important truths to understand about all this awakening is whether it's spiritual or existential or realizing that politics and Hollyweird are nothing but a messed up group of very lost souls doing some very awful things. It's almost impossible for any of us to know the absolute truths of the matter on anything. Anything you could be hearing could be 100% of a lie, because we're not really there to hear it. We're taking someone else's word for it most of the time. So be discerning about everyone and everything and every single bit of what you might be consuming. Stop idolizing people and know that anything we know about anything can be complete bullshit. Even if it's religion, even if they say that aliens are demons to scare us away from contacting them, everything at every turn is just so manipulated. So keep your mind open. And if something resonates with you, then go ahead and align with it. As long as you keep asking the questions that no one wants to answer. And if they tell you to look one way, keep your head on a swivel, stay vigilant, and look the other way at everything and anything possible. I found that some of the biggest shifts that I encountered when life was pulling on me in the darkest of times, and I felt like I lost my tribe, was community. And I tried to turn toward anyone and anything that I possibly could, the prescribed version of God that existed in mainstream religion. And that's when all of this stuff first started to click. It was probably about like 2014 for me, where, 12 to 13 years later, in the thick of it all, maybe, 25 years since the first seeds were actually planted, finally getting to a place where I feel like I have a good understanding of what I know and can discern things for myself and realize that I have no idea what I don't know. I just know that there's a lot that I don't know, and I'm keeping my mind open for it all. But remain open-minded toward anything and any possible truths that might be out there. The difference between the times that I came into a higher sense of awareness and now is that this stuff is everywhere now. There's so much information to try and pick through. Back many, many years ago, there was only a certain amount of books and movies and hidden messages and breadcrumbs. And now it's so in your face, it's hard not to be bombarded with it. And that stuff all has its own issues where, there's false prophets of truth and people that are just seeking clicks instead of sharing true information. You got to work harder now to make sure that what you're getting isn't further deception and just controlled dissent, which is why I stay open and pliable to whatever comes up. So just keep 1 foot in and 1 foot out, so to speak, of everything. So that's it, guys. I'd like to deliver a more positive message on this all. It's mostly positive with a little bit of the negative stuff that can creep in this process. But, I'd say the big thing for everyone in this process is to just know that you're not alone. You're on the right path. And there are others that are on this road with you, and find a sense of community. To help find a better sense of community, a good perfect segue, is that I will be recording some of these episodes live once again on the Noom Vibe app. That is NOOMVIBE. If you don't have it, go download it, get yourself a profile. It's a great app that allows you to listen to live stream presenters on a whole broad span of stuff. Find great like-minded people. You can get into these rooms. Sometimes you're invited up on stage if you raise your hand to speak, and you can actually join in. And whenever I do the show on there, I will actually do a recording and I will invite you up to come and give your comments live. And if you're a good contribution, I will add that to the show. So keep an eye out for those. I will post when I'll be doing some of those live events on social media as well as in the newsletter. So if you're not part of the mailing list, again, head to livethislife.org and do so. But yeah, make sure you guys, if you do join the mailing list, check your inboxes, check the spam folders and everything. But join us for those upcoming live conversations. And if I join you up on that stage, you could be part of the show. So that is it, folks. The dark passage of awakening, it can appear dark and scary, but this isn't the end. It's a doorway. Just remember that. You're not broken. You're not anything close to broken. You're just breaking through. You got to trust the void, trust the process, trust the loneliness as well. The light on the other side is so real, and it's deeper than anything you've ever known before. So that's it. Share your experiences with us on your dark passages of awakening. You can email me at livethislife.org. I would love to hear from you and hear what you have to say about your own experience and how that went for you, whether it's a detailed message or something short. So share your experiences on your journey and find new senses of community wherever you can find it. It's a great way to survive this process, and just keep your mind open and don't dive down those dark, dark rabbit holes. Try and keep yourself elevated through it all. There's a lot of stuff coming at us on a daily basis. So try and keep that vibe up. Until next time, keep pushing through the shadows, guys. You got this. We'll see you next time. We are all creators. You got a story to share? Are you a conscious creator, inspirational entrepreneur? Well, we want to hear from you. Email us at connect@livethislife.org or book a time to talk about an episode collaboration at calendly.com/livethislife. The link is in the show notes. And subscribe on Spotify and YouTube to catch this podcast in full video, and bonus content is available for those on the mailing list at livethislife.org.